Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Made in England with me, Richard Vobes. It's very nice to have your company this afternoon on another. Well, it's actually been a very sunny day. The lovely Julia and I should say, have been out. We're going to find out what this is. It's not a lantern, I can tell you. Is anybody there? Anybody at all? We'll also have a look at the bottle, which is the thing that we were looking at yesterday. It's a broadsheet here. Still can't work out what the name is on the side of that, but don't let that worry you. And what's your latest hobby? Have you got a hobby? Do you do anything in the spare time? Love to know what your hobby is. The Hobbies Weekly from 1948. We'll have a quick gander at that, but also lots of other bits and pieces as well. All in our wonderful show that we call Made in England. Roll the credits. It's a Tuesday today, ladies and gentlemen. It's the 22nd, is it not, of November 2022, as I record this. I hope you're all well and doing good things. It's getting colder. I don't know if you've noticed that. I may have to start wearing woolly jumpers because this is in my house where I record this in the master bedroom. And it faces the sun, although the sun is quite low. But because the screens are blacked out, you can't actually get much heat in here if the sun comes out. So it is getting a little bit chilly. What are you doing? Are you managing to cope? Are you surviving the colder weather? Are you wrapping up? Do you sit inside a nice, a big jacket, big cardigan, big jumper, or in one of those things that you go camping in, a sleeping bag? That's obviously a good... I thought it was great if somebody would design a sleeping bag that you could wear. I know you can get those... jackets, those jackets for your immersion heater, you know, those things you wrap around and all of that. I thought, well, that kind of thing would be quite good, like a romper suit, but man-made. It's a bit like that. What didn't they come out with something a bit like that, but actually padded? You'd be a bit like the Michelin Man. And then I had another idea. Why, in the winter you start to get the electric blankets under the bed. What if you had a suit that was effectively made out of an electric blanket? So you could have your wiring going round, all sewn in, perfectly safe, low wattage or voltage or whatever it is. And you would, if you were sitting down to watch a bit of television or working at your desk, you would just have a little plug, a little simple plug. You could plug it in to the socket so you could sit. Obviously, if you get up, you'd want it so it would just undo very easily, so you wouldn't sort of pull everything off wherever it is plugged in, that kind of thing. Or maybe it somehow connects your chair. I don't know, it's all a bit barking, but that sort of thing. Rather than heat up the whole room, as they say, you only need to heat up the person. Unless, of course, there's several in the room with you. Yesterday we had a lovely email from one of our viewers who asked, where can you get logs from? And of course, logs is a lovely way of heating up the room. And the lovely Julia came over to the Made in England studios here. And in the evening we were cooking again, and we had the fire blazing. It was very lovely. It's nice to have a bit of heat. But of course I'm trying, like everybody else, to save as much electricity, save cash, because the cost of everything's gone up. So I'm sitting here in the freezing cold. But don't let that worry you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you're not concerned one iota. And neither should you be. I'm sure that I shall survive the day. Now, yes, we will find out what this is coming up. I wanted to show you the bottle first of all, because we were looking at that yesterday. This is a pamphlet that came out. I'm not quite sure when it came out, probably in the 1800s, something like that. And it's the story of a gentleman. Does it have his name? I can't. The husband and wife. The husband basically takes to the bottle. Now, this would be quite interesting because we're going to talk about Thomas Cook very shortly, and the problems that, well, not so much the problems, but his business started really on the, connected, if you like, to the bottle. We'll get over to that very soon. Let me show you the webcam here of some of these pictures. Look at this. Hang on, my shadow is in the way. Sorry about that. Here you can see that the bottle has been purchased. Look at this. Everybody's drinking. Isn't it marvellous? He says words to that effect. And then he started to get... where is it? There it is. He started to get a bit used to the bottle and is a bit drunk where everyone else is going, poor old chap. Then soon the whole family are looking after the bottle and drinking, but he can't afford his bills because he's trying to maintain all of that. His family, sorry about that. His family gets a little bit destitute, and finally the furniture is all gone. He's all on his lonesome todsome. His family are all wretched. Eventually, of course, the bottle starts leading to fights and arguments as the drunken things happen, and eventually he's killed his wife here. And instead of actually going to prison, which is quite strange in this little set, I can't open the last page. Come on now. He's all on his own, lost his family and everything, and there he is, the wretched man, all thanks to the bottle. Which is, it's a sort of a warning, is it not? A warning, taking to the bottle. But beautiful little sort of thing. I don't know whether this was a parody or whether it was this is a facsimile of the sort of thing that Hogarth was doing with his Rake's Progress that we spoke about. Anyway, totally fascinating, and thanks to Fred Cooper for sending that to me. I think it's really nice. So yes, now we'll be talking about Thomas Cook very shortly. So let's have a look at some of the things that happened in this day. Now, let me just say this. I don't know whether you're interested in these little tidbits of things that happened in this day. One of the things I find absolutely fascinating about the things that happened on this day in history is not so much that they happened on this particular day. It's not so much that. But for me, I start to look at these things and you think, bloody hell, this is interesting. I didn't know this. This happened and that happened. And then I feel, oh my goodness, I want to buy a book about this and read all about it and understand, because the bits that I just, find from the internet sources just to act as a little bit of titbit for the show, a little sort of tittle-tattle thing to go, oh yes. So one can go to a friend, a neighbour in the old days and say, oh, did you know on this day that such and such happened? Oh, I didn't know that. No. Well, I'm sophisticated, cultivated and urbane, whereas you are an ignoramus. Not so much to do that, but I find I just get a little bit absorbed in all of this. So I'm going to show you a picture now, and I want to see if you know who the hell this is. Hang on, let's start with, which one should we do? This picture. Here we go. Stand by. Just going to zoom in a little bit and get him into the right position. Who do you suppose this funny-looking character is? I'll zoom in a bit so you can see him a bit better. There we go. Look at that. He does look a little bit rough, doesn't he? He's got what looks like some guns and various things around him. He's got a bit of a shaggy old long coat on, a strange-looking hat, and very peculiar-looking beard. Well, it's the beard that is the giveaway there, because he is no less than Blackbeard. Yes. A pirate Blackbeard. Edward Teach, his name was, the English pirate who sailed under the name of Blackbeard and was killed on this day in history in 1718 in a battle off the coast of North Carolina. Now, I think I'm just trying to remember if I've been to North Carolina. I went to somewhere round there. It was the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And then I think we went into North Carolina just a bit in 2007, must have been, with my wonky eye. Anyway, he was killed in North Carolina by a boarding party led by Royal Navy Lieutenant Robert Maynard. In a battle. And I suppose you would like to see a picture of the battle in which he was killed. I've got a picture of that as well, which is rather gruesome. There he is. I don't know if that is Maynard on the right and then Blackbeard on the left, but he does look rather gruesome. Look at that, with his massive great cutlass. Not cutlass. Is it a not cutlass, is it? This sword is... Whatever. Is it a cutlass? Could be a cutlass. And the other one with his... one of those flintlock guns, all very exciting. Anyway, more information about that. He was born sometime in 1680, apparently, better known as Blackbeard, an English pirate who operated in the West Indies and the eastern coast of Britain's North American colonies. He may have been a sailor on privateer ships during Queen Anne's War before he settled on the is it the Bahamas? The Bahamian island of New Province, a base for Captain Benjamin Hornigold. Now there's a name to be conjured up, isn't it? Hornigold. I'm Captain Benjamin Hornigold, horny all the time, and rich as anything for gold. Anyway, his crew, whose crew Teach apparently joined in 1716, where the two engaged in numerous acts of piracy. He became a renowned pirate, his nickname derived from the big thick beard, Blackbeard, and his fearsome appearance. He was reported to have tied lit fuses. These are sort of like slow matches. Well, I suppose for the flintlock pistols, I imagine, or possibly for cannons. I'm not quite sure. But he put these under his hat to frighten his enemies. I presume to show that he could feel no pain. Like sometimes you see in these films where, you know, the villain takes a cigarette and stubs it out in his own hand. I can't remember what film that was in. There was a film where he did that. And you're supposed to think, oh, no, he sounds clever, and he doesn't feel any pain. Poor sod. Anyway, he was finally round up and killed by Lieutenant Robert Maynard's ship in the battle off the north coast of Carolina. And apparently, at the end of the battle, I found this quite interesting. See, this is where I suddenly want to go, I want to know as much about this as possible rather than just these sort of tidbits, because there's a whole load of stuff. And you sort of read in and go, I want to tell everybody about that, I want to tell them about that. And you go, there's no time, Richard. Teach's body, Blackbeard, had been shot apparently in this battle that we just saw the pictures of 5 times, and he was cut about 20. So he was really lacerated in this. The corpse then was thrown into the inlet, wherever the battle took place, and his head was suspended from the bowsprit of the Maynard's sloop, Lieutenant Maynard's sloop, so that the reward could be collected. So there was obviously a reward out for his head, and I guess it was it wasn't like in those days where they had photo fits and you could go, are you sure that's actually him? Yes, I did kill him. There's a picture. I took it on my phone. You had to take the body part, the head, and go, there, look, I've killed him. Can I have my reward now, please? Yes, certainly. It's thank God we don't have to do that. Not that we go around killing people anyway. Well, we shouldn't do anyway. I don't know whether you do. I hope you don't. So that was a fascinating thing. I think I've got one more picture to show you of Blackbeard. I think there's another one here, not as gruesome, and it's a bit more stylised. Here, let's see if we can look at that. There he is in all his fight. Blackbeard the pirate. That I think must be one of these old woodcuts or something. But it's looking very smart there. It looks pretty nice with his cutlass in his hand, and they look like pipes, but I think they're his flintlock pistols. And then in that little pocket there, that's where he keeps his iPad, and he watches the Made in England show with Richard Vobes. So I'm told. Until, of course, he had his head chopped off when he died in a horrible, agonising death. So that was that. Another chap who we've got in 1774, Robert Clive, English soldier, often referred to as Clive of India, died on this day in 1774. Possibly, it says here, from an overdose of opium. Although I read in a history book, I was intrigued about this because it said possibly he did, and then there was this sort of, it may have been suicide, it says on this little report that I saw, but suicide was regarded as a sin in those days, and if it had been admitted by his family, he wouldn't have been allowed in church, he wouldn't have had a church burial. And then it says, as it is, his grave was unmarked and remains so. So I thought that was quite interesting, except that here is his grave. I don't know if you can see that, and I don't know if we can zoom in a bit there. Look, it does look like it's got some words. I don't know. Apparently that's his grave, but it's supposedly unmarked. But people know where it is anyway. But it's got a whole load of other bits and bobs connected. I've never been there. I don't know where it is, actually. Maybe you know. You can tell me anyway. Thought I'd show you that. Clive of India. He... what have I got here? I've got not much more on that, because actually I started to sort of go, how can I tell people about him? Because he was in India, and he was part of the East India Company, and he was involved in a whole load of stuff there, and of course he's a bit of a controversial figure. I'll come to that in a second. But he amassed a absolutely huge amount of wealth. He wanted to get into Parliament, apparently, and become an MP. But for some reason, I think people were so jealous of his money that he never really ranked much in that. He was fantastic as a general or whatever, and and sorting out India, I think. And eventually, I believe, he got in touch and he said, look, the East India Company are too big, and I think the government should take over the province of India and managing it and what have you. But I understand that they said, no, the East India Company is doing a very good thing. Now, I don't really understand all of this. So much history in this country. We did so many amazing things, and some of them, of course, not so amazing. I'm not saying everything that we did was brilliant or whatever, and I know people are very, very quick to jump on anything that anybody says about history where you're sort of glorifying it in any shape or form. Now, I used to have a girlfriend up in Shrewsbury. And this is the county that he came back as an MP for what they used to call Salop, which is Shropshire. And let's have a look here. Where are we going? There. And so this is a news item from the 16th of July 2020. Clive of India, demoralising decision to keep racist statue, they say. There he is. That is Clive. And it says a decision to leave a racist statue standing in the town centre due to red tape is demoralising and beggars belief. So the campaigners, these people who want to get rid of our history and the statues, out. Apparently, Shropshire Council voted in favour for no further action following a petition to remove from the Shrewsbury town centre Clive of India statue. Anyway, it goes on, and we won't waste time looking into that too much. But I remember going past that, and the thing about that, what I found was interesting, I had no idea. Clive of India, who the hell is he? I don't know who he is. And the great thing about statues, it's controversial because he wasn't directly involved in slavery, as they're all saying, but he was over there in India as part of, I guess, a part of it was the East India Company then, that wasn't, as far as I know, and people will correct me, people know much better than I do. I mean, that's why I suddenly thought, oh gosh, I need to read a whole book about this to understand it, not just to jump to any conclusion from something you read online. But the thing about statues, and rather than get rid of them so they disappear and people going, oh, we're offended, oh, we're so offended, is more to sort of go, well, who is he? What did he do? What is it about? And actually go and investigate and look it up. It's something that jogs your memory because it was there, I think it was there since 1860, it was plonked up there. And so you think, well, those people thought it was worthy of putting up there. I wonder why, who was he, what did he do? Let's find out. And I think that's a very good use of statues. But you may disagree, and if you do, then why not
send an email to richard@vobes.com.
That's my lovely daughter Georgie telling you to
send an email to richard@vobes.com.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can tell me, and we'll bung it in the show. So anyway, there was so much to say about that, and also on this day, ladies and gentlemen. Another interesting character that, again, one of these things that we take for granted, people maybe have gone on holiday with the result of this particular person. In 1808, the birth of Thomas Cook, the English travel agent. He began his pioneering tour of business, Thomas Cook and Son, and was born in Melbourne, not Australia, in Derbyshire. In 1828, he became a Baptist missionary and toured the region as a village evangelist. And he distributed pamphlets. And then in the 1830s, he became involved in the temperance movement. Now, there's a statue of him. See, this show is all put together in some seamless fashion, isn't it? Well, not really, but we do our best. Now, hang on, I've got to find this picture. If you've ever been to Leicester, I think this is next to the railway station because that's where he was brought up. Let's have a look. There he is. Looking very suave in his frock coat there and what looks to me like a very lovely waistcoat. Although made of bronze, it would be too heavy for me to wear, of course. And he's got a bow tie on and not a cravat like myself. But that's Thomas Cook. Now, it's interesting that we are looking
Send
at
an email.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Georgie. Very kind of you. She's very keen, my daughter. Now, we mentioned temperance, didn't we? Now, he did in fact, I'm going to get not Georgie, the lovely Julia, to tell you the next bit of this, because it leads us into something about the bottle that we were looking at a few minutes ago. So let's have a gander at this. If I can press the right button, hang on a minute, come out of there and press that and do this. No, even that doesn't work. Hang on, press that, go into that.
We've taken a little step out of the studio. Well, I've taken a little step out of the studio and joined up with the lovely Julia. Hello, Julia.
Hello, lovely Richard.
We thought we'd just come down to Goring Gap, which is to the west of Worthing, and have a little stroll and have a look at the seaside.
Yes.
And we were both thinking about this Thomas Cook business. His first, what do you call it, excursion?
Excursion.
Excursion, there you go. And what did he, remind us.
He escorted 485 people from Leicester Campbell Street railway station to Loughborough, which was 11 miles away. And they all paid £1 each for the return train journey.
Right, did they? So
They were all part of the Temperance group.
that was the thing, temperance. And that made me think, actually, here's a question that very often we get asked. When we do things, people often buy us a bottle of wine, or when we go to the pub and have a soup, as we used to do on our walks in the old days. But I would always have orange juice and lemonade, and you would have
The Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Let's just walk into the woods over there. I'm actually going to come this side of you now because of the sun. So we didn't get the glare coming into our faces. And yes, it's an interesting thing because I used to drink beer, not profoundly. My mum was an alcoholic, so I've always been slightly wary of it.
It's not like you were doing it every weekend or even every night.
No, I never used to go down to the pub, but people often think, oh, that's a bit strange. And if you don't drink very much or at all, people often think that's a bit weird. You don't drink very much either.
No, I used to
Keep
work.
walking.
I used to work in pubs and stuff as well, and and was often offered, get one for yourself. I was like, oh, I'll have a pint of Coke then, thanks.
Yes.
And they'd be like, what? Yeah, that's what I want. Are you sure? Yeah, no, thanks. I'm working,
Yeah,
I'll enjoy
well,
that after work.
Yes.
Got to drive home,
I think if you're working, you shouldn't be on alcohol anyway, should you?
No, even behind a bar.
Even behind a bar, yes, because you're dealing with people's money.
But usually what you do is you have it paid for, note it down, and then you can have it at the end of your shift
Oh, right.
whilst
okay.
you're tidying up.
Yes. The only time I ever worked in a bar, really, was when I was at Butlins.
Oh, yes.
And I wanted to be a redcoat, but I went to the wrong place to be a redcoat. Hello, keep going. And because of that, I had to work at the bar at Butlins.
Yes.
And I hated it because I couldn't understand half the drinks that people wanted. So I actually worked on the children's bar, making slush puppies and things like that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was much more fun.
One for me, one for them, one for me.
Well, I didn't have one.
No, I know. You're not allowed, are you?
No, of course, and they work you like dogs at that particular place back in those days, and that was in, I suppose, the 1980s. Was it the 80s? It must have been the early 80s, I think, when I was trying to become a redcoat. Anyway, that's another thing that put me off drinking, is that seeing people drunk.
Yeah.
I know
It's not a pretty side of...
It's not a pretty sight, and I never quite understand why people, when they get to the end of the week and they think a good night out is where they don't remember
Get
it.
absolutely blasted.
Yes, it can't be good for the liver, as I know that in the case of my mother, of course. We walked through this rather curious, it's almost like a petrified wood.
Woods, yeah.
And then we're just going to go down and have a quick look at the seaside. So I keep urging you to keep walking and moving, because otherwise we'll run out of time,
Yeah.
as this is not like one of our traditional walks where we've got 20 minutes.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of cute, lovely dogs around. There was one
Yes.
big wolfhound type thing up there, and I get very distracted. It's, ooh, doggy, stop it. You're working.
So the question is that we want to find out is, do you, lovely viewer, are you somebody who enjoys a lot of alcohol? Do you drink very regularly, or do you sustain, or are you completely teetotal? And has your opinion changed as you got older?
Yes, we're interested to know.
And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the sea looking ferocious. Let's
Wow.
give you a view of that.
That was hilarious. I thought, oh, I just hop up here. It nearly got me. Lovely.
And so from the beach, just west of Worthing towards Goring, on a very dramatic scene. We thank you for watching this little insert, and we're trying not to get our...
Who's going to get us?
So, back to the studio.
Bye for now. Whoa.
We didn't get wet, you'll be pleased to know. We didn't get wet at all. No, we managed to avoid that foam coming in. Yes, so are you somebody who enjoys a good drink? Now, as I said, I drunk before. When I used to do the Vobes show, which was a version of this, I suppose, and then there was a podcast many, many years ago. I used to have a mate called Jimmy, and we used to do a thing called the Friday Night Beer Show. It was quite legendary. We would get a little bit tiddly because we basically didn't drink. But we would sample these drinks on the show and then get a little bit sort of fruity and giggly more than anything else. That's what happens with alcohol and me. It either knocks me out or makes me a bit giggly. And I suppose I have been damaged by alcohol in as much as I saw what it did to my mother. And so I have a very... It's like, I suppose, if you're a sailor and you lose a mate overboard and you realise the dangers of something, and perhaps then you overcompensate. Now, a lot of people enjoy a drink, but I just choose very rarely to have... And when I do, I enjoy it, but in very small measure. The other thing for me with alcohol was that when I had children, I was always aware how precious they were when they were young, and that if ever, any time I needed to get them to hospital, or indeed get them out of the house that might have been on fire, I needed to be in charge of my wits, and I would never take any substance in which it would basically be mind altering, which of course alcohol does. But you may have a different opinion. Now, I'm not here to judge anybody. You're entitled to do whatever you damn well please. Of course you are. It's none of my business. But I just find it interesting sometimes. There are these things that people go to, like this guy in the bottle. Once he was addicted to it, and it's just a fascinating thing. Anyway, do let me know. Send us an email, richard@vobes.com, as the lovely Georgie will now tell you.
Send an email to richard@vobes.com.
Thank you, Georgie. Very kind of you. Now, I also wanted to tell you about something else that happened on this day. How are we doing? We're running out of time. I want to tell you what this is, but also just want to get through here. What is the next thing? For those people who like English literature, those people who like a bit of English literature, on 1819, the birth in Nuneaton of Mary Ann Evans. Know who that is? Mary Ann Evans? Yeah, I'll show you a picture. You'll recognise her. Hang on a minute. Let's get this picture up. Here we go. There she is, Mary Ann Evans, otherwise known as George Eliot, of course, who wrote numerous books. And it was really, her success came about when she pretended to be a man, because she was living in, I suppose, a man's world, and they didn't want to sort of deal with silly little women and making their... This is not my opinion, that's back in the day. But it was interesting because I just thought it would be quite funny. She wrote a book called Middlemarch, which appeared in 8 instalments between 1871 and 1872. And Middlemarch was a fictional English Midland town. I haven't read it. It's one of those sort of things. There's so much that, as I said at the beginning of the show, there's so much one wants to know, so much one wants to read, to have a real grip on things. And you think, hang on, I'm of a certain age. Why have I not read all this stuff? Why do I not know all this stuff? Sometimes I find it incredibly frustrating. Every day there's more history being laid down, good or bad. Anyway, set in Middlemarch, yes, an English Midlands town, 1829 to 1832. It follows the distinct intersecting stories with many characters. And I just wanted to read you a little bit from the very first first chapter of Middlemarch, even though time is now completely against us and I'm never going to get round to some of the things I wanted to get round to, which is absolutely crazy. I don't know where the time goes. Too busy waffling, I suppose. Anyway, here we go. This is the opening. So at least you'll be able to have the opening lines, even if you never read it. You'll be able to quote to your friends the opening lines of Middlemarch. And let me just, here we are. Here is the book. And so you can look at the cover by George Eliot of the book as I read you this. And it starts like so. Miss Brooke had that kind of beauty which seems to be thrown into relief by poor dress. Her hand and wrist were so finely formed that she could wear sleeves not less bare of style than those in which the Blessed Virgin appeared to Italian painters, and her profile as well as her stature and bearing seemed to gain the more dignity from her plain garments, by which the side of providential fashion gave her the impressiveness of a fine quotation from the Bible, or from one of our elder poets in a paragraph of today's newspaper. She was usually spoken of as being remarkably clever, but with the addition that her sister Celia had more common sense. Yes, that's how it goes on. It prattles on that for some time. That's your language of the 1830s and what have you, or 1872, in fact, as it came out. Phew. And it looks like it's a massive book of massive print. Has anybody read it? And what is your classic stuff? Do let me know. Right, I want to just quickly go through the emails because there's a couple of things I need to do before we disappear, and I've got to just quickly try and work out how to get to them. So our first email here, let's... where is the sodding thing? Here we are. This is from Ronnie, who says, Richard, I thought you might like to cover on your show all decks apart from lights collected from... I don't know quite what you mean by this. All decks apart from lights collected from charity shops, including the trees. Right. On the little tree, fake flowers. You try saying that on a live show. It's not a live show. And bows from Poundland. I know a little early, but good time to go sourcing stuff, and it's all good fun too. So basically, this is about Christmas trees, and here is a picture of the Christmas tree that we're talking about, and there is another one here. Look at that, all lit up, looking absolutely resplendent. Thank you very much, Ronnie, for that. Go back to emails. And, oh yes, Lynn says, morning, Richard, loving the shows. Yesterday was so funny with your masks when Julia and I were putting on the face mask in the English couple. She says, on today's Made in England, would you be able to wish Richard, her hubby, a happy birthday? Of course. He's only 21. In advance, so much, thanks in advance, so much, you'll be very surprised. Yes, absolutely. So happy birthday to you, Richard. It's very nice to be able to wish you a happy birthday. Have a lovely time. Can't wait to see you next when we go walking, probably in the spring, on one of the Board Explorer walks. And I wanted to do this, but we're going to run out of time. An email from Paul, but I'm going to leave that for tomorrow so that Paul's email can be done in proper fine spirits as it was meant to be done. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry to rush through today's show. Lots of things. It's funny, isn't it? You think some days you start this and you say, I've got nothing to... What am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk... What is this? What is this? If you know, have you tried it? Let me know. I'd be interested. We'll talk about that. We'll go and have a look at our hobbies manual tomorrow. So something to look forward to. Phew, I don't know how we manage it. But anyway, there we go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe and all those things. And I will see you tomorrow. Ta-ta.